Hello! Today, we continue the mystery series with a horrific case from China. Everyone has heard the term serial killer. It's no stranger to anyone. It has appeared in mass media or in television and film works. When imagining this villain, surely everyone thinks of a tall, agile person with superior physical abilities, making it impossible for victims to escape his terrifying pursuit. However, today we introduce to you another case in which the serial killer is a man over 50 years old, paralyzed in both legs and moves with difficulty. He is a devout Buddhist, living in a small house reciting prayers under the dim altar day and night. In the eyes of the neighbors, he's considered a gentle and honest person. So, how did this demon disguise himself as a kind middle-aged man for many years without anyone detecting his terrifyingly cruel behavior? And who is he? All will be revealed in today's video. Hello, I'm Joe. Welcome to the Chinese Crimes Channel, a channel specializing in real-life cases in China. In July 2010, a girl went to the police station in Catlam City to report the disappearance of her mother. According to a statement, the missing woman is named Zhang Zaiji, 49 years old, who has been a freelance worker for many years. However, because she hadn't heard from her mother for a long time, the daughter went to Catlam City to find her mother. Although she could not find her mother, some colleagues at the labor market where her mother went to look for work told her that they'd seen Zhang Zaiji come home with a man to work as a maid. The disappearance of Zhang Zaiji attracted the attention of many people. However, what's even more surprising is that just a few days later, the authorities received 5 more reports of disappearances, with names like Li Lingliang, Li Fuji, Shu Lin, Bi Ankun, and Meng Yangji. The common feature among the victims is that they are all freelancers, women aged 45 to 55. The police believe that all these disappearances have the same perpetrator. To identify the identity of the perpetrator, the authorities quickly launched an investigation plan. However, no clues were collected because all 6 victims had unstable jobs and their whereabouts were difficult to trace. These women are all middle-aged women, over 50 years old, and usually go to the labor market to find work. After finding a job, they gradually lost contact with their families. When investigating the information and reasons for the disappearance of these women, the police realized that all these nannies were directly sought and negotiated about the job by the homeowner while they were waiting at the labor market. Since there was no registration information about the homeowners, the investigation became difficult. Although the police deployed forces to the labor market and contacted other laborers in neighboring areas, they couldn't find any suspects and no specific clues. Meanwhile, the police continued to gather information from other laborers and relatives, friends, as well as former employees of the missing persons to learn more about their physical characteristics, clothing, and habits. The police tried to find valuable clues to solve the case and evaluate the possibility that the missing persons left home for other reasons or were kidnapped and fell into the hands of human traffickers or were killed. While the situation was still not promising, the police received important information from a relative of one of the victims. This person remembered that on the 12th of August, victim Bi Ankun, after a period of work, returned to her hometown to give her family her earned salary. She said that she had just taken a job caring for an elderly person in a family. This man was disabled in his legs and had difficulty moving. She had to take care of the man, about 6 feet tall, aged between 50 and 55. The family where she worked had a Buddhist altar. The homeowner was a kind man living near Dianan Street, and the house was at risk of being demolished due to the resettlement area. This information was very distinctive and could help narrow down the investigation. The investigative agency focused on finding the man living near Dianan Street, who matched the description in terms of age and leg disability. The investigation area was defined from Dianan Street, with a radius of 2 kilometers, including surrounding areas. The police mobilized more than 30 people to focus on investigating residential buildings near this road, paying special attention to neighborhoods slated for resettlement, and to search for a man with leg disabilities and a Buddhist altar at home. On August 17th, the police initially identified 2 men in the residential area near the railway line to the southeast, near Dilan Street, as potential suspects. After investigation, they gathered the following information. The first man was Mr. Cheng, 62 years old, who had an accident 6 years ago and had to move around with crutches in a wheelchair. He was a devout Buddhist and had a Buddhist altar at home, but he lived alone and had never hired a helper. He also had no wife or children, and he relied on his pension, being quite cheerful. He loved children, often buying candy for them, and they occasionally came to his house to play. This man often invited everyone and the children into his home in a relaxed manner, making it difficult to create a closed crime scene. There was nothing suspicious about monitoring this man. The second man, named Zhang Shuhong, 51 years old, who was divorced. He'd been paralyzed since childhood, so his movement was difficult, and he had to use his father's crutches. Zhang Shuhong's father was seriously ill, and he couldn't take care of him, so the family often had to hire helpers to take care of him. Economically, Zhang Shuhong didn't have much difficulty because his father was a retired senior engineer, and his pension was enough to cover living expenses for both father and son. However, the family often had to change helpers. Zhang Shuhong's house had a separate room for the Buddhist altar, with a large and meticulously arranged altar. The altar light was always on, day and night. When someone visited and asked about the previous helper, Zhang Shuhong would say that they'd quit and returned to the countryside because they couldn't stand his father's unstable temper. He often felt frustrated and uncomfortable seeing his father lying paralyzed for many years, which made his emotions unstable, and often threw objects within reach and cursed the helper terribly. This made the helper unable to endure, and they had to leave for the countryside. Each time this happened, he had difficulty finding a new helper for his father. Zhang Shuhong was quite gentle, but he lived quite lonely and rarely invited anyone to his house to play. After many efforts, the police determined that Zhang Shuhong lived in apartment number 3, first floor, right door of building 16, the railway residential area in southeast of Zhuap district, Katlam City, as the main suspect. The special team began to monitor Zhang Shuhong's family 24/7. However, behind his house was a vegetable garden and dense trees, so the windows were always closed and the curtains drawn down to avoid insects. Monitoring staff could only observe at night. Zhang Shuhong's house often had lights on all night, but he rarely left the house, and no one knew exactly how many people were in the house and whether Zhang Shuhong was at home or not. In the night, the scent of agar wood still often permeated, like a memory of a missing son. The team leader disguised himself as a water meter reader and accompanied another member of the police force pretending to be a community worker to go to Zhang Shuhong's house. As they entered the house, they immediately noticed an altar with a budded savar on it, with the scent of incense lingering in the air. After observing for a while, the 2 undercover police officers signaled to each other and arrested Zhang Shuhong along with his wife, named Li Yantu, 7 years younger than him. The arrest of this villain proceeded smoothly and effortlessly. During the search of Zhang Shuhong's house, they discovered tools such as kitchen knives, a hatchet, and a roll of nylon cord. These items were carefully seized for testing, and the results showed that they all contained DNA from the missing individuals. The police also found several dried bloodstains on the kitchen floor and gold jewelry belonging to women, such as earrings, bracelets, necklaces, and rings, hidden in a corner of the backyard. These pieces of jewelry were photographed and presented to the relatives of the victims for identification, and all were confirmed to be the missing individual's gold jewelry. With such evidence, Zhang Shuhong's defensive mindset was finally completely defeated on August 21st. According to Zhang Shuhong's confession, since 2009, he had consulted a fortune teller and was told that he would not live past 53 years old. During that time, Zhang Shuhong was facing severe diabetes and declining health. He had reached the age of 50 and blindly believed the fortune teller's words. Together with his wife Li Yantu, they decided to kill people to ensure his wife's livelihood after his death. Since May 2009, he and his wife had conspired to murder 7 people and rob more than 30,000 yuan, along with a quantity of the victim's gold jewelry. In addition to 6 female housekeepers, there was one 24-year-old man. But how could a disabled person like Zhang Shuhong kill a healthy young man only 24 years old? In 2009, to carry out his own murder and robbery plot, Zhang Shuhong placed advertisements about fortune-telling services with an address, with the intention of luring strangers to his home to attack and rob them. When a man named Li arrived, Zhang Shuhong led him into the prayer room and listened to him talk about career difficulties and a desire to know his future fate. Zhang Shuhong pretended to have knowledge of fortune-telling, and after a while of deception, he gave Li a glass of water. Just a few minutes later, he passed out from the heavily drugged water. Zhang Shuhong easily strangled him and killed the healthy young man, then dragged the body into the kitchen to proceed with disposal. However, after searching the man's pocket and clothes, only 20 yuan was found. Zhang Shuhong felt angry for having spent 240 yuan on the advertisement. He felt frustrated for taking such a risky gamble, only to end up losing in the end. He devised a new trick, sending a blackmail letter to the address of the previous man mentioned for fortune-telling. However, he received no response after sending the letter, but this setback did not deter him from his evil intentions. Zhang Shuhong continued to contemplate ways to murder and rob the next targets. He targeted people from rural areas, coming to the city for job opportunities, such as housekeepers or caretakers for the elderly and young children. He approached them by inviting them to care for his bedridden father at home, selecting those who wore a lot of jewelry, such as earrings and necklaces. Zhang Shuhong often deceived them by introducing himself as a scholar researcher with the ability to fortune tell. With superstitious beliefs, the victims agreed to drink a magic water concoction prepared by Zhang Shuhong, but it was actually laced with sleeping pills. When the housekeepers fell unconscious, he used nylon cord to strangle them to death. Zhang Shuhong then calmly took a kitchen knife and proceeded to dismember the bodies into a cooking pot, then poured them into the sewer. The bone parts were placed in garbage bags and thrown into the Tunghua River. Despite having stolen a significant amount of money, Zhang Shuhong was still frugal and thrifty. He only ate rice and vegetables, refusing meat and fish. This serial killer has committed such heinous acts that are beyond reprehensible. In addition to the 6 victims who were harmed, the youngest victim, an 11-year-old girl, happened to be Zhang Shuhong's own daughter from his first wife. Why would this villain kill his own flesh and blood? To understand more about the life of this cruel and unique individual, we need to delve into his family's background. Zhang Shuhong's father was a senior engineer, and his mother was an excellent teacher. His siblings either lived abroad or were well off in China. In theory, Zhang Shuhong's upbringing was not bad, but he developed a twisted ego. Zhang Shuhong had been paralyzed since childhood, making mobility difficult. This often subjected him to bullying from his classmates. This paralysis condition caused severe physical weakness, but only affected the lower half of his body. He still had strong hands and a normal mind. Zhang Shuhong often avoided contact with others when he was young, perhaps due to his own insecurities and extreme solitary personality. In 1982, when Zhang Shuhong was 23 years old, he met Shu, a girl who was also paralyzed. They quickly got married after meeting each other, but from then on, tragedies began to unfold. After living together for 4 years, the couple still did not have a child. Shu went for a checkup, and the results showed that she was perfectly normal. The reason lay with Zhang Shuhong. While Shu did not feel too pressured about the issue concerning her husband, Zhang Shuhong was different. He not only wanted Shu to have a child, but also insisted that the child must have a blood relationship with him. This posed a challenge, and he had to find a solution. Zhang Shuhong came up with an idea of using his brother's sperm to have a child. Initially, both Shu and his brother strongly opposed this idea. But after Zhang Shuhong cried and begged, after a year, in 1987, Shu gave birth to a daughter named Zhang Tan. The fact that a seemingly normal person could carry out such unethical actions is truly astonishing. From this incident, it can be seen that Zhang Shuhong's psyche differs from that of a normal person, and his thoughts have been skewed for a long time. After his daughter was born, although he spoiled and cared for Zhang Tan deeply, the root of the child was always like a thorn in Zhang Shuhong's twisted psyche. He began to have extramarital affairs. Sometime later, Shu discovered that Zhang Shuhong had a woman outside their marriage. The two argued over this reason and divorced in 1991, when Zhang Tan was only 4 years old. Because Shu did not have a stable job and Zhang Shuhong's family was better off, she decided to leave her daughter with Zhang Shuhong's to raise. Surprisingly, despite Zhang Shuhong's love and indulgence towards Zhang Tan, the girl remained indifferent and distant from him. Zhang Tan did not show any affection towards her father. As Zhang Tan grew a little older, she enjoyed dancing and often walked to school instead of riding in her father's electric car. Shu said that until now, she still does not understand why her daughter treats Zhang Shuhong like this. Perhaps Zhang Tan was afraid of being teased by friends for having a disabled father, so she did not want Zhang Shuhong to appear at school. In July 1998, the dance teacher announced that Zhang Tan had not come to class. Shu contacted Zhang Shuhong to find out and received the answer that Zhang Tan was angry and went home to her mother. But Shu waited one more day, but still did not see her daughter return home. She searched everywhere and posted information into newspapers, but to no avail. Then, during the investigation, Zhang Shuhong confessed to killing his daughter. He felt resentment because his daughter was cold and did not reciprocate his love. In a fit of rage, he confessed to giving his daughter sleeping pills, but she only drank a small amount and did not completely lose consciousness. He stabbed her to death while she panicked and cried. Zhang Shuhong disposed of her body like the other victims and threw the bones in a plastic bag and into the Tunghua River. In prison, when asked about the reason for killing his daughter, Zhang Shuhong coldly replied, "After all, she's not my daughter." Both Zhang Shuhong and Li Yantu were sentenced to death for their barbaric actions. During interviews in prison, Zhang Shuhong confessed to reporters that the only place he remembered was not his childhood home, but the prison cell where he had been for 2 or 3 years. This demonstrates Zhang Shuhong's abnormal and insane psyche. On December 26, 2013, Zhang Shuhong was executed by firing squad for his cruel actions. He was 54 years old at the time, 1 year older than the prediction of a fortune teller before. Before heading to the execution, he made only one request: to meet his wife one last time. On the prison transport vehicle, Zhang Shuhong and Li Yantu had their final meeting. When talking about this man, Zhang Shuhong was not just superstitious, but could be called fanatical. He believed in the prophecy of a fortune teller that he would live to be 53 and then prepare for life with his second wife. However, he did not diligently work to earn an honest living, but instead sought ways to be cruel and insane, such as killing and robbing. It cannot be said that he struggled to make a living because of his disability, as killing could be easier than laboring for a living. However, it cannot be explained why he brutally slaughtered his own daughter just because he felt disgusted when she did not reciprocate his love. Although she was not his biological daughter, he raised and loved her since she was young. Those about to die often speak the truth because they know there is no more time for pretense, envy, or affection. However, even after facing the court, Zhang Shuhong still did not reveal the real reason why he killed people and his daughter. And this is today's case. Do you have any thoughts to share? Leave a comment below. Chinese Crimes will continue to analyze real cases in China in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video to support us. For now, goodbye and see you soon.